actually going where it belongs. My name is Samantha Mirabal with Melco's application team, and let me make sure I can see comments and all that. So give me a second. I am live. Excellent. So how do I do this again? There. Excellent. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Samantha Mirabal. I'm with Melco's application team. And this is our Design Shop Talk, where we get together on a regular basis to try to answer any questions you might have about Design Shop, digitizing, whatever you want to talk about. So welcome. Hi, everybody. So I only have a few questions for today's talk. So if you've got anything, type them in on comments on the thread. If you see, good morning, Dina. If you see me looking a little bizarre, looking over to the side, I have another monitor set up where I can scroll through the comments. The guys showed me how to do that, so now I can see more than 4, which is nice. All right. So I hope today's a little bit better than last week. I kicked all my kids off the internet, so hopefully that helps. All right. So these are the questions I got ahead of time. Is there an easy way to convert or change a single line walk stitch to a zigzag? Basically, how to quickly use the shapes that are already built into the software to create your own patches. Okay, so let's go do that. I've got Design Shop here. Oh, it looks like we're live everywhere. Excellent. Okay, so if you've never used the custom shapes, you should. They're fun. So where can you find them? As you click right here on this thing. I don't know what that is. It's a bunch of shapes. And that will take you to the custom shapes area. Okay, so the automatic custom shape right here. Under there's different categories you can find. You can find custom designs, custom shapes, all kinds of things. Well, there's also, if you go under custom closed shapes, you'll see there's all kinds of little shapes you can play with. All right, so I'm gonna start with this filled rectangle. Let's use that one. All right, so to drag it onto the screen, I'm just gonna left click and drag. It drops it over here. If I want to center it, I can say center design. Okay, so what if you want this as a patch where you can use fabric instead of with it doing a filled area? Okay, so if you click on the shape, you see the wireframe is all outlined, and pointing at my screen is not helpful. There we go. So you can see it's all outlined here. And what we're going to do is convert that over into a placement stitch, which is a walk stitch, and then we'll do a zigzag and other things. So how do we do it? There's a few quick ways you can. Control changes an element, Shift adds. All right, so if I hold the Shift key down, so first you select the object, hold Shift, and then click on the walk input method, notice it put a walk in for me. Okay, so if I delete all the, well, I'm going to move that over so you can see it. All right, so I've got a walk. Now what happens if you want to take this and convert it into a zigzag? Well, I'm going to duplicate it. All right, so to do that, I did it quick, sorry. Right click and then duplicate. And I want to give it a different color, just because. So let's say now we want to turn that into a zigzag. How do you do it? Again, you can hold Control to replace that stitch, or if you want to add, you hold Shift. So I already duplicated it. Excuse me. All right, so I already duplicated it, so I don't need to add another one. So I'm going to hold Control this time, and then click on the single line center. Single line center as a constant width column. All right, so I'm going to hold the Control key and click on the single line. You'll see it put a satin stitch in there. All right, if I put it in 3D, you'll see it. I've got a satin stitch. Well, a satin stitch isn't exactly what we want. We want a zigzag to hold the fabric down. So how do we do that? Well, you select the object you want to change. So I'm going to take that satin stitch. And up here under stitch type, rather than having it satin, I'm going to change it to tackle. All right, tackle is a level dependent feature. So if you don't have that, what you can use instead, which it works, it looks a little different, but it works, is you can select your satin stitch and make your density something like 17 to 20. So down here, instead of using auto density, I'm going to turn off auto, and I'm going to change that to, let's say, 17. See, now I've got a zigzag. It's not a true zigzag, it's a satin stitch spread out. But if you're doing patches and your purpose is to hold the fabric down, this works just fine. Okay. Again, if you're working on patches, 20 is kind of small for that tack down. I like something closer to 30, so 27 to 30, somewhere in there to hold the fabric. It's a nice placement stitch that way. Okay, so that'll convert it over into your zigzag. So we've got our walk to place the fabric down, we cut it out, zigzag to hold it down, then we do whatever text you want on here. So whatever design you want, you type it out. And then from there, we can add our satin stitch on the end. So I'm just, again, duplicate this. And since I left it as a single line, I'm going to change that over, just put the density back down to something more reasonable. Somewhere between 3.5 and 4, depending on the size. That works pretty well. And again, you want it bigger than that tack down stitch, so maybe a width of 40, something like that. Okay, so I've got my walk, my zigzag, and my satin stitch. And then if you've got other designs, you'd put them between your zigzag and your satin stitch. Okay, so again, how we did that is we took our custom shape, dragged it onto the screen, selected the thing we wanted to convert, held the shift to add, click on the walk. Now I've got a walk. So again, I'm just going to drag it up so you can actually see it. So now that I have a walk, I can take that, again, hold my shift key to add, and I'm going to click on the single line center. Now I've got a satin stitch, but we don't want it to be a satin, so I'm going to change its color and change it to a tackle. Okay, and maybe make that again 30. Then duplicate this, go into the properties and change it back to a satin. And you can use auto density if you don't know what to use. If you have a setting you like, you can change it to whatever you want. And voila, now it's set up for a patch there. Okay, so that is using those custom shapes, right? So I think that was our question. Let's see. To convert a single line walk to a zigzag. Yeah, so we did all that. Let me show you one other way to do that. So I was using shift and control. There's actually a few other ways you can do it. So if you take that same walk stitch, and again, I'm just going to drag it up. Right here, this button, it's 2 squares with a little arrow between it. That's convert element type. So if you click on that, you can then think about what you want to do. So if you want it to be a single line center, okay, I can choose that. And you can decide, do you want to add a single line center, or do you want to get rid of this walk stitch and change it over into a single line center? So if you want to get rid of it all entirely, you just say replace. If you want to add, you say add. And again, we get a satin stitch. You can also right click on your element, go down to operations and say change element type. That's another way. Okay, so there's a lot of ways to do the exact same thing. I use the hotkeys a lot, so the shift and control trick, just select whatever you want. Hold control for replace, shift for add, and then click on whatever you're trying to convert it to. So that works with fills too. So let's say I've got that walk normal and I add shift and click on this one here, which is our complex fill. Well, now I have my fill back. So it adds a fill. All right. So that is our first question. Okay, I've covered these in our, there are other videos, but I don't have any questions, so I'm putting them here. All right, doing the split feature and step and repeat. So let's go look at those. So split is where we're going to take something and we want to cut it into different segments, if you will, right? So if I have a shape, and let's do something else. I'm going to close this. And if you're new to DesignShop and you've not done any graphics, let's see where we can go get them. So if you go over to your C drive, there's a folder called Designs, and within that there's a folder called Graphics. And if you scroll through there, there's different things you can trace and play with. I'm going to go grab the one called fills.bmp, okay? And it's just something to give you to trace. All right, so let's look at this heart. Let's say you want to create a fill and then you want to split it into 2 different colors so that you can have like a broken hearted type look, right? So you need to use a split element. Actually, you could do it multiple ways, but we're going to do it a split. So let's say I trace my shape, and if you've not used these, it's, right clicks are your curved points, left clicks are your straight points, draw, hit enter. So I did the complex fill, trace my shape, hit enter. I'm going to hit enter again to bypass the holes, give it a start point, a stop point, and a stitch direction. Okay, so now we have a fill. So let's say we want to split this element up. All right, get out of there. So I hit escape to get out of the tool. And while I was hitting escape, I hit F1 too, which will bring up your help. All right, so if we want to split this, what if we want to just cut it in half? Well, to split a fill, you have to give it 2 points across which it's going to split. So if I select this point, hold my control key down and select that. Notice they're both now black. The split element, if you hold down the square with boxes, you'll see there's one with a circle cut in half. That is split element. So if I click on that, now I have my heart in 2 pieces. Okay, well, what if I don't want it just to be a straight split? What if I want it to be like a zigzag of some sort? So I can do like a broken-hearted look. All right, so in those cases, first we've got to add kind of like the line that we want to split across. So again, we want to modify the shape. So you select it first. I'm going to click on here, which is Insert Splice, and I'm going to hold that down to go Insert Curved Splice. A regular splice is a straight line from point 1 to point 2. A curved splice lets you draw all different shapes. So I'm going to start here, and I'm just left clicking. You can right click if you want, but let's say that. Okay, so I drew myself a splice line, and if I hit escape to get out of that, you can see it just put kind of a line where as the stitching comes across on that fill, it'll put a needle penetration down on the line we drew. Well, now we want to split it into 2 colors. Excuse me. So again, you have to give it a line to cut across. So I'm going to choose that point, hold my control key, and pick this point. So I'm selecting the end points of that splice line. And right here, I'm going to say split element at the selected point. So I click on that, and voila. I've got side 1, side 2. Okay, and then just for fun, let's say you want to move that over. Nate showed you how you can select an element, hold shift, and move it over exactly. So let's say we want to move it over a little, and maybe we want to rotate it out. So I don't want to rotate around this point. Let's say I want to rotate around down here. So this is the point that it's going to rotate around. So I'm going to grab that, left click, and drag it down here. So now when I rotate, it'll rotate off that bottom point. Okay, so let's say we did that. That's cute. All right, what about step repeat? So I think those were the questions. How do you split? So this was split on fills. What about the other elements? Split works on other things. When you have a closed shape like this, a complex fill, you have to select 2 points. If you're using a single line, so let's say we drew an ugly S. There we go. A really ugly one, sorry. So let's say we drew that, and we want to cut this into different pieces, right? So you select the element. This is just a single line that we drew. So to split it, you just choose the point you want to cut it at and click that point. And now it's in 2 pieces. Okay, so now I've got that piece and this piece. If I want to cut it here, I can left click to add where I want to cut it. And, you know, there, now I have 3 pieces, 1, 2, 3. Okay. And that's not even an S. Wow, goodness. All right, what about step repeat? So step repeat is kind of a repeating function. So I'm going to turn off the artwork and this mess here. Let's say we want to sew this in a big hoop. So let's look at the hoop. I'm going to right click on the hoop manager, change this to, let's say, the 11 by 17. I love that hoop. Turn it on, and this is a tiny little guy. So let's say you want to fill it up, or you want to have multiple squares of it or something like that. So up here, I'm going to copy and just put it into a clean file so that S doesn't copy in place all over the place. All right, so object, step repeat. Okay, so what this is going to do, it'll bring up a box where you can tell it how many, give it the parameters.